A travel advisory just released by the State Department is warning Americans about the risks of traveling to Baja California. Now, this comes with startling accounts of violent crimes south of the border involving U.S. citizens that never made it to our crime databases on this side of the border.
And in a rare arrangement, 10 News anchor Kimberly Hunt went south of the border with a U.S. law enforcement officer so specialized in border crime, he was asked to testify about it before the U.S. Senate.
If you look at the cartel,
we head south into Mexico with former Chula Vista PD Captain Leonard Miranda, who knows when cartel bosses are busted, the fallout plays out on the streets of Baja California.
you basically have a bunch of unemployed freelancers now, people who've been trained in kidnapping, extortion, surveillance, torture, homicides.
The State Department travel warning calls crime and violence in Mexico in 2014 serious problems that can occur anywhere in the country, but especially in the border region. It poses a potential danger to U.S. travelers. The report says U.S. citizens have fallen victim to murder, gun battles, kidnapping, carjackings, and highway robbery. Our first stop was Tijuana. These are today's headlines. 2 more severed heads found for a total of 5. And here, the narcos take on the government. Our sources in Mexico gave us the footage. The 2 heads were found on the road to Rosarito. Their identities haven't been released.
There's no predictability as to where it might occur. If that's an opportunity for a drug cartel member to hit another member, it's going to happen. The collateral damage, they're not that usually concerned about.
Gun battles between rival cartels have taken place on the streets just like this in the broad daylight. And U.S. citizens have been temporarily trapped in the restaurants or the shops, or worse, they've been the unintended victim of the gunfire. Last year, the number of U.S. citizens reported to the State Department as murdered in Mexico was 100. But it's the number of kidnappings the report calls a particular concern, saying they're on the rise in Mexico and reported less than 1% of the time. In 2014, 130 reported kidnappings involved U.S. citizens. One of those kidnappings was a U.S. businessman snatched in Mexico. 2 of his fingers were mailed to his family in the U.S. Panicked, they brought them on ice to the Scripps Chula Vista Hospital.
When the gentleman came into the hospital, he merely wanted to find out if he got the victim back, if the fingers could be reattached and be functional.
Doctors couldn't reattach the fingers, but the businessman was released after the family paid $3.5 million in ransom, never reporting the crime in the U.S. Miranda says perhaps out of fear that that could be a deadly mistake.
Crime statistics don't always show the threat that's out there.
That businessman, like so many others, was kidnapped, ransom paid, and released all south of the border, never triggering a response from U.S. law enforcement, all part of the cartel's plan.
That was Kimberly Hunt reporting. U.S. consulting firms hire former U.S. law enforcement officers to negotiate with the kidnappers. That's part of the reason that authorities on this side of the border never get the information to include in our crime stats. Tomorrow on 10 News at 11, Kimberly uncovers the rise in carjackings and bogus cartel checkpoints that are targeting U.S. citizens.